The casket was halfway into the ground. The priest was still speaking. And a young man in a gray suit turned around and walked away. Not slowly, not quietly. He walked like a man late for a meeting. Nobody stopped him. But an old woman standing near the flowers leaned toward her daughter and whispered 5 words. He shouldn't have done that. I was standing close enough to hear it. I didn't know the young man. I didn't know what he'd done, or why, or who he was running from. But that sentence followed me home that night. He shouldn't have done that. I've thought about it for years, and I'm going to tell you exactly who that man was. But not yet. Because before I tell you his story, I want to walk you through 5 things I believe we all get wrong at funerals. Small things, things that feel harmless in the moment. And by the end, I think you'll understand exactly why that old woman said what she said. Let's start with the first one. Number 1, moving on too quickly. 20 minutes after the burial, the parking lot was full of laughter. Someone was arguing over whose car to take. Someone else was already asking where they were eating lunch. A group of cousins were comparing flight times back home. Nobody had done anything wrong exactly. Life doesn't stop for grief. People have jobs, children to feed, flights to catch. But I've started to notice a pattern. We treat funerals like an item on a to-do list. Show up, cry a little, hug the widow, check. Now back to normal. The thing is, grief isn't an item you check off. It's not a scene you exit once your line is finished. And I wonder sometimes if the rush to move on isn't really about schedules at all. Maybe it's about discomfort. Sitting with death, even for an hour, forces you to sit with your own, and most of us would rather talk about lunch. So we run, not physically, just quickly, politely, with good manners and empty eyes. That's the first mistake. Not that we have lives to return to, but how badly we want to return to them. Number 2, making it about appearance. Here's a question. When was the last time you got dressed for a funeral and thought more about how you'd look in the photos than who you were burying? Be honest. I've done it. I once spent 10 minutes deciding between 2 black jackets before a burial, genuinely unsure which one photographed better. 10 minutes for a funeral. There's a particular kind of person you'll always spot at these events. She arrives early, not to help the family, but to find good lighting. She takes a slow, solemn photo beside the casket, captions it with a broken heart emoji and a Bible verse, posts it before the burial is even finished. I'm not saying grief can't be shared publicly. Some people process pain that way, and that's fair. But somewhere along the way, a portion of us stopped attending funerals to grieve and started attending them to be seen grieving. There's a difference between dressing respectfully and performing sorrow for an audience. One honors the dead. The other borrows their death for content. And the family in the front row can always tell which one you're doing. Number 3, turning it into a reunion. Let me tell you about a woman I'll call Blessing. Blessing lost her husband after 11 years of marriage. At the funeral, the church was packed. Old classmates hugged each other by the entrance, delighted to be in the same room after 15 years. Business associates exchanged contact numbers near the drinks table. A group of men stood by the gate discussing a football match, voices rising every time someone scored in the replay on someone's phone. And Blessing sat alone in the front pew. Not because people didn't love her. They did. They'd come from 3 different states to be there, but somewhere between the greetings and the group photos and the, "Wow, it's been so long," the room forgot why it had gathered. At one point, a woman walked past Blessing, said, "Sorry for your loss," without breaking stride, and continued straight into a conversation about a wedding next month. Nobody sat beside Blessing for almost 40 minutes. I know because I counted. I wasn't judging anyone that day. I was one of the people standing near the gate. But I remember looking at her, alone, in white, staring at a casket. While 40 feet away, her husband's funeral had quietly turned into a class reunion. A funeral is not the place to catch up on the last 5 years of somebody's life. It's the place to make sure the person still living doesn't feel alone in the worst moment of hers. Number 4, forgetting the family. After the burial, day 1, the house is full. Food arrives from every direction. Phones ring constantly. Day 3. Still full. Slightly less food. A few less phone calls. Week 2. The visitors have thinned out. The fridge is emptying. The phone rings maybe twice a day. 1 month. The house is quiet. Everyone has said their part. Life for everyone else has resumed. 3 months. The phone barely rings. 6 months. Somebody mentions, almost in passing, I've been meaning to check on them. They never do. Here's what nobody tells you about grief. It doesn't peak at the funeral. It peaks in the silence after. When the casserole dishes have all been returned. When the extended family has flown home. When the world has quietly decided the appropriate mourning period is over, and everyone else is allowed to stop asking. That's exactly when the widow is setting the table for one. That's exactly when the child is doing homework at a desk that used to have 2 chairs. The real test of whether we cared was never the turnout at the burial. It's whether we remembered 3 months later when nobody else did. Number 5. Leaving unchanged. Now let me finish the story I started with. The young man in the gray suit. The one who walked away while the casket was still being lowered. That man was me. 9 years ago at my grandmother's funeral, I got a phone call about a work deal I'd been chasing for months. I stepped away from the grave to take it. I told myself it would take 30 seconds. It took 11 minutes. By the time I turned around, they had already finished. People were dispersing. My mother was standing exactly where I'd left her, watching me walk back. She never said a word about it. But an old family friend standing near the flowers did. I heard her whisper it to her daughter, the way you'd say something you didn't intend for the person to hear. He shouldn't have done that. I've carried that sentence for 9 years. Not because it was cruel. It wasn't even said to hurt me, but because it was true. Here's the mistake underneath all the others. We attend funerals, feel the weight of them for a few hours, and then walk straight back into the exact same lives we had before. The same rushed phone calls, the same neglected people, the same excuses. It's not that we don't feel something at funerals. We do. It's that the feeling rarely survives the drive home. I didn't change that day. Not for a long time. I kept taking the calls, kept missing the moments, kept telling myself I'd be more present after this one deal, after this next promotion, after things calm down. Things never calm down. That's the lie. I don't know what brought you to this video. Maybe you just buried someone. Maybe you're dreading a funeral this weekend. Maybe you clicked on this without really knowing why. But I want to ask you the question that finally caught up with me years after I walked away from that grave. If your life ended exactly the way today did, would the people closest to you say you were present? Not just physically in the room, but actually there. You don't get to choose when you'll be the one in the casket, but you get to choose every single day until then, whether you're the person still checking your phone while someone you love needs you to simply stay. I finally put the phone down, later than I should have. But not too late. If there's one thing I'd want you to take from this, it's not call your parents or forgive somebody. You've heard that 1,000 times, and it never quite sticks. It's simpler than that. The next time you're standing at the edge of a grave and your phone buzzes, let it ring. Some moments don't come back around.